A letter from Peachland requesting our support in having them ask the province to review the lake level management. It's actually exactly the right time to do it. When the lake flooded in 2017, we began working with the regional districts and ended up having a valley-wide flood mapping project. In order to do that project, the engineering consultants actually had to put in different lake level management than actually happens. If the engineers had put in lake level management like we do right now, the 2017 flood would start happening on a regular basis after the middle of the century because of climate change. So that whole report, one of the central recommendations of the report is that in 5 years, the province should review and change their lake level management to reduce the risk of flooding. However, it's not that simple. It's not simple enough to say, well, we want you to change the full pool height, because we're also really concerned about the risk of flooding. I mean, the risk of drought. We're concerned about the risk of drought because periodically we have low lake levels. So what the province has to do is find a way of managing the lake that reduces the risk of flooding and doesn't also increase the risk of drought.
And fisheries are also a concern, right?
Fisheries are also a big concern because there's a lot of fish that are spawning in Okanagan River Channel. There are kokanee that spawn all around the shores of the Okanagan Lake. There are ocean-going Chinook that are coming upstream. We have to think about how do the releases down the river and the season of the releases down the river, how does that affect those salmon populations? It's been a huge effort on the part of the Okanagan Nation to restore those fisheries. So they have to be completely involved in determining what's the best strategy for managing the lake.
How old is the data or information or reports that we're currently working on?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about how the lake level management dates back to the 1974 basin study, but actually those things have been refined over time. So even in the last 20 years, they've really improved and updated the ways that they manage the lake. They have a very sophisticated computer system that they use to determine when to open the gates in Penticton as a way of balancing the needs of the fish, of the people on inner tubes, of the people who are trying to withdraw water from the Okanagan River Channel downstream, and also for flood control and drought. So the province is juggling all these different balls and trying to find the right solutions. So we want to sit down with the province. We want to encourage the province to work with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and with the Okanagan Nation Alliance and with all the different communities and try to update and refine those. It's really a lake level management practices.
Is it kind of like another study is needed, or what what do you think actually?
Yeah, well, right now we're just about to do a little gap analysis to see what additional science is needed. We did a whole lot of climate change modeling looking at the looking at the flood risk. Now we need to do a similar climate change study looking at the drought risk and what the risk return of the drought is. Because in 2009, everybody was really worried because the lake was being drawn down so low. So if we draw down the lake low every fall to help reduce the risk of flooding, and then if we don't get the rain or the snow, then the lake will be low and it will be hard to bring it back up again to the level that everybody wants for the summer. There are some flooding scenarios that have to do with the full pool being set at a certain target. In some years that doesn't matter. So it's actually, the full pool is an important part of it, but it's also how far down do you draw the lake in the fall or in the middle of the winter? It's also getting a better understanding of how do you forecast the weather better, because really we like to control the lake between about a meter and a half difference between the summer and the winter. We don't like to have a hugely fluctuating lake like they have over in the Arrow Lakes or something. We want to have a tight management, and so we need to have really good science in order to be able to do that. Well, we are looking at climate models that go all the way to 2100. We're looking at a whole bunch of different climate models that we've gotten from the University of Victoria. We're looking at the releases from Penticton Dam and all the different possible permutations that you can have for how you do that. We're looking at the life cycle of several different fish species. We're trying to consider the irrigation needs of the farmers down in Oliver. And there's also, everyone all the way down Skaha Lake, Osoyoos Lake, and down south of the border, there's all these streams and lakes that have to be considered. It's Mother Nature who's making the calls, so we're just trying to respond to Mother Nature, trying to predict what she's going to do 1 year to the next, one season to the next, even sometimes 1 week to the next. And I think that we're all trying to do the best that we can. I know that the province is aware of this issue already. I think that it will help to have Peachland and other Okanagan local governments and interested parties encouraging them to get to work on this. They know that they need to do it. There's been a number of studies that came out after 2017 that talked about what had to happen on the Okanagan Lake system. I think that they're very well-meaning and they want to do the right thing, and I think that we can push them to do it faster. Well, they know because when we were doing the flood study that just got finished this spring, our engineering consultants actually sat down with Sean Reimer, who operates the dam, and said, look, we don't want to just put in your normal operating roles, we want to have it more flood protective. And he said, well, here's some thing that might be the way that I could do it. And so he was involved in coming up with this more flood protective model that we ended up using for the flood mapping. So he knows that it has to happen, but he also, when he was doing that, he was just thinking about flooding and he wasn't thinking about drought risk, and we actually have to think about both. The drought risk is that we don't refill the lake. I mean, it's a natural lake, and some years we don't get enough precipitation to bring it up as high as we wanted. We haven't yet, in the history of our settlement, we've only seen one really severe 3-year drought, and that was in the 1930s. And that would draw the lake really far down, where it'd have to start pumping water over the dam in Penticton and do what they call mining the lake if the lake got drawn down too far. Nobody wants to see that. So we need to be sensitive to the issues of drought, while at the same time being sensitive to the issues of flood, because both of them can be very devastating.